Alia Shawkat plays Angela Adams / Emily Chase in the drama series The Old Man. I'm Matt Noel from Gold Derby, and I wanted to kick things off by asking you, Alia, what was the biggest challenge for you in approaching this role?
Well, a lot of my work as an actor has been in comedy. Um, I've done some drama, but there's always been pieces of comedy, dark comedy in it. So, part of what drew me to it and was the challenge was that I'd be playing a role that doesn't really have any cynicism or humor really in it. Um, and playing somebody who, went to college pretty much. Someone who's in the FBI, that seemed like a challenge to me. And yeah, playing like a proper adult.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no humor. You had that great story about the kid with the cap in the.
Oh, right. But is that supposed to be funny? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get to in this series act so much opposite John Lithgow. What was it like approaching scenes with him and sort of bouncing off each other?
It was such a gift. John Lithgow is like such an amazing actor. I was such a fan of his, and then to work with him, he's so giving and kind and fun and tells so many amazing stories in between every take. Um, it was just, yeah, I felt really lucky to work with such a professional, but just someone who he just had like an immense amount of energy. Um, and I love the way that he took the role seriously, but also kept it so light on set. So he'd be telling these great stories and be like, okay, I'll tell you after. And then we'd hop into this like intense scene on the airplane as if, he would just trade hands so gracefully. So I kind of learned a lot from that, where I was like, oh, right, I don't have to be in a weird mood just because I'm playing someone who's upset. And I consider him a dear friend. So I feel like that was the best gift of all.
Mm. And like he's done a lot of drama too in the past, but also like it was funny seeing sort of maybe Fugay and Dick Solomon like doing something so dramatic
Sure.
together. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah. Do something what do you think is at the heart of your character in the show?
What's at the heart of her character?
Yeah, like what's her driver? Like because there's a
Yeah.
lot of confusion there, I feel for her.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's trying to find answers. Kind of throughout the whole show. She's someone who seems very self-assured and smart and always thought she knew everything. And then all of a sudden these secrets start to reveal themselves, and I think she's starting to question the ground that she stands on. And the more she questions things, the more questions there are, and she just starts to, you know, um yeah. I think her family history too is also something that starts to come to light in a way that is pretty upsetting for her.
Mm.
And now we're shooting season 2, and the answers to these questions just get much more elaborate.
The she's really like a character with sort of two, well, for most of the first season, like there's two fathers and two
Yeah,
relationships she has that are very different. You know, one's sort of biological, the other is, but the other's been a lot more present in a lot of ways in her life. Um,
yeah.
how did you play someone that sort of is sort of serving two relationships at the heart of the show?
Yeah, I think, a paternal figure obviously is important in in life. I think that I was reading this book actually recently that was talking about the importance of a godfather in the role. So your actual father sometimes can't fulfill the role that you maybe expect him to. There's lots of pressures put on our birth fathers. But then it's easier to have some kind of godfather like character who can give you advice, and you could kind of take it a little more willingly instead of being like, I don't know, we're a lot harder on our actual parents. But in this case, it's a much more, dramatic kind of setup, whereas my birth father has to be in hiding, so it's like a secret, and it's almost like our dynamic has been in this weird way that I have to protect him my whole life, but he's actually not there for me, even though I thought he was. So I mean, it was a really interesting psychological kind of thing to play, and then as the season goes on, she starts to realize maybe her birth father didn't protect her as much as she thought he had. Um, and she starts to, kind of sacrifice John Lithgow's character a little bit by being like, it's worth it to know the truth in order to give up this relationship. So yeah, it was really interesting, to play, and then yeah, it just keeps going, just gets a lot more elaborate. Yeah.
We talked a bit about sort of acting with John and sort of those scenes and playing that relationship, and he's someone that's brings a lot of energy, and you have that sort of like fun in between very dark scenes and stuff. Playing that relationship with Jeff Bridges' character, where you're pretty much just on a phone call with him. How do you tap into that relationship? Because I imagine you would have had to approach those scenes quite differently on the phone.
Yeah, the way we shot them, which was nice, is that I was actually on set in a booth. So it wasn't so sometimes usually they'll just have you record it later. And then the actor doesn't have anything to go off of. But I was there doing all the takes with Jeff, and yeah, I mean, we tried to find it where it feels like they're obviously connected, but I think in a way Angela is a lot more youthful when she's talking to Chase, in a way maybe stunted slightly, that their dynamic is she's always kind of will be seen as younger to him, and someone who's maybe a little bit more emotional and fearful and protective of him, whereas when she's Angela Adams, she's a lot more composed and tougher, and that's her kind of forward facing personality. So I think what was important, for me and the creators, John and Dan too, is to find that dynamic of, first of all, trying to guise her voice, which was hard, trying to like hide it a little bit so it's not a full giveaway, but also to show that when she's talking to Chase, there is a younger energy that's coming out, and just differentiate the way she communicates with him than she does in her, kind of fake life, but she's been living that for almost 20 years. So
there's I feel like you've got two really pivotal scenes with John in the series, and they both take place in not public transport, but they both take place in transportation. Yeah. One on a plane and one on a train.
Yes, support public transportation.
Yeah, no, yeah. You when you guys are on the move, a lot comes out. With the on the plane scene, John's character talks to your character about the choice that you have to make between the two, or the choice your character has to make between loyalty and what name you have and how important's a name. You as an actress are changing your name all the time and having to make a whole bunch of choices about character and about who you're presenting and what you're choosing to present of yourself. What was an important choice you made with this character and these choices and the choices you made on them?
Yeah, I mean, in this story of The Old Man, so much is about the name, right? And the history and the story that follows. It's kind of like an old folk tale in some way, like the stories we tell ourselves about the kind of westernized man who saved a country, and he was the cowboy and he was the good guy. And the Old Man is a chapter years later that goes, was he the good guy? Was that his name? Was he really that much of a hero? So I think that's what kind of drew me to the show, and in the choices I made for Angela versus Emily, it's like she's kind of at the crux of the crack, where she starts to question all of these realities, and without sounding too heady, but in the archetypal world, it's like actually her father, the paternal figure in her life, the father energy in society, is what she's questioning. This male figure, is that real? Is my father really a good man? Am I to listen to the paternal figure always? So I had fun getting lost in those kinds of questions because it's funny. Sorry, I keep referencing the second season, but because I'm shooting it right now, it's so much on my mind. It's just
Yeah.
it's a really great lead up to the first season. Kind of asks all these questions, and the second season is starting to answer them. But yeah, I think the show just asks really interesting questions of like, can we believe all the stories we've been told?
Mm.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and that scene on the plane, how is that sort of filming that, and anything about like stuff you had to tap into
Yeah.
there?
I mean, it was still in COVID.
Yeah.
So I just remember all the crew being like really masked up, and John and I, wearing the mask, not wearing the mask, and it was a very tight little, set. And it's pages. It's like 5 pages of dialogue or something. And it kind of felt like we were doing some weird play. Like we'd leave the little plane set, sit there, we'd do a crossword puzzle and talk, and then go back in and like knock it out, So it was a long day, and my brain felt like it was getting massaged, like when you learn that much dialogue at a quick pace, it's like it's really it's challenging but fun. You feel very alert. So it
Mm.
was a very fun scene to do. I remember being pretty nervous about it. I was like, that's a lot of dialogue. But John at his age of 53 or whatever, he was I mean, his memory is unbelievable. So I was like, if this guy can do it, I have to be able to memorize these lines well.
Yeah.
But it was a very fun day that day, yeah.
Mm. How did it compare to that scene you had on the train in I think the next episode of the series?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it was also fun. Again, yeah, different form of public
Yeah.
transportation where we're kind of stuck in this environment all day.
Mm.
So the reality of this of shooting it, we were actually on a real train, and the whole crew was there. We just kept going back and forth all day. Which I think is really fun because as an actor, you kind of feel like you get to just keep doing it over and over again and find this kind of calm rhythm instead of being like, oh, we're going to scratch the set and move on. So like, better get it done now. And then I'm going to take the chair you're sitting in, it felt a lot more still, and kind of calm. And yeah, the dynamic between our two characters, Harper and Angela, they're going a long journey. So it did feel that way. John and I were stuck in all these different environments together, slowly processing what our
Yeah.
characters were going through. Yeah.
Yeah, and like his character really challenges you in that scene with,
Mm.
when all there is sacrifice in sort of a
Yeah.
relationship's what left, and your character says there's clarity. Um, did scenes like that help you find clarity for a character that has a lot of different stuff going on in her head?
Yeah. I mean, I will admit when we were shooting it, John and I both were a little like, what's happening? Because the dialogue and the scenes are, really sharply written, but they're very elaborate and there's a lot happening and our characters don't even know what's fully happening most of the time. So it was kind of a puzzle piece as we were shooting. It wasn't an easy like, oh yeah, and that's that. Like it wasn't super clear always. But that helped because my character didn't know what was going on, so I just kind of played that confusion. Yeah.
And there's a lot with your character going on beneath the surface as
Mm,
well. Uh, you know, how do you go at like making those choices of what to bring to the forefront and what to sort of
yeah.
keep restrained?
I mean, I think it's a lot of help with the directors too, finding this style of the show. And on one end it feels like it can be this like action show with Jeff, and then the other end it's this kind of spy thriller kind of thing. And it's a lot of like revealing documents and being like, but if this is his, then whose is that? And without making it feel cheesy and authentic. Um, I think trying to just like, ground it as much as possible. People who work in the FBI also just like not wanting it to seem too showy. That these are people who are mainly working in offices most of their careers. Um, so yeah, I think I would just try to keep her as grounded and, let her intelligence and what she knows just come through as much as possible. And throughout she's trying to hide a lot of how she's personally feeling. So it's like she's feeling emotional, but I think most of her life she's been trained not to feel emotional. And now people are referencing her mother and her father, and all of a sudden she's feeling these childlike emotions come up and she's trying to tamper them down as much as possible.
Mm. The show's called The Old Man, and there's a lot of very experienced actors in that show. And look, you're pretty experienced yourself in television and comedy. You didn't start working yesterday, but relatively, you are the young woman that's on The Old Man. What perspective do you think you had to offer that helped serve the story and the collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I was saying earlier, a lot of what this is about, even the title, The Old Man, it's kind of this like this dying story, this dying tale, and what comes next is youthful feminine. I think that's the opposite of the old man, is the young woman. So yeah, I feel proud that I got to, tell this story, be a part of that. But I think in my role is to be she's kind of taking over for what is old and kind of dying ways of thinking. Yeah.
Cool. We're awards website at Goldo. We cover all the big awards. We love the Emmy Awards. It's my favorite. And you were part of Arrested Development, which really, sort of broke out in that first season of the show at the Emmys, winning Best Comedy Series. You were part of that season, obviously, because you're part of all the seasons. What did that show and that experience sort of teach you about comedy and performing?
Oh man, I mean, I started doing that show when I was like 14 is when I got the pilot. So it was a huge part. I mean, Michael Cera, who played George Michael, and I even still talk about it, how much it formed a sense of timing and rhythm in us without us even consciously, being aware of it. It was an amazing show. Nobody thought it was at the time until years later, but it was a very formative experience, obviously, and it was really fun. I mean, to be that young, we were the only kids on that show with such veteran comedians. I think we kind of just tried to keep up, and our natural instincts, which were pretty sharp, were really encouraged, which is a great thing when you're a young artist trying to be like, is this funny? And they're like, yeah, it's very funny, and lean into that or go that way. So I feel very lucky that it was so nurtured. I think it forever changed the way I read scripts. But yeah, it was huge. I mean, I remember that night too. We won, and then Mitch said, okay, now watch the show. Because no one was watching it.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, it was a very big deal. It was very exciting for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there, when you look back on your time on that show, is there a particular moment that you just always go back to in your head or that first comes to mind?
I always think about when we were in our schoolroom, because we had to do school throughout pretty much the whole show. So it was me and Michael and a tutor, and us just kind of like fucking around and not really getting any work done, and being excited when they knock on the door and be like, we're ready for you. And we're like, oh, sorry, can't finish that homework, I guess. Gotta go work. But yeah, and being at the banana stand, by the beach all those days. But yeah, all very positive experiences. But it's crazy. I mean, that was almost 20 years ago now when I started the show.
Yeah.
And then it obviously went on for a while. But
yeah. What was the funniest maybe moment for you?
Oh gosh. I really liked it was in the first 3 seasons, I don't remember which one, a second or third, but where I got to dress up like Shirley Funke, her twin who had like a fake nose and was in a wheelchair. It was just so elaborate, and like at a young age, they gave me I had a lot of character. She was always in disguise, and then even in the Netflix series, I got to be like crazy hours of makeup to be dressed up like a guru, which now I'm like, would that be appropriate? But a lot of the show isn't politically correct anyways. But yeah, I really loved all the disguises that I got to wear. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah. I loved when you got to play when maybe got to be the movie executive, and she landed her way into that job, which is funny because I believe the first film she was trying to adapt was The Old Man and the Sea. And that's
true. And now here we are.
Now here we are doing The Old Man without the sea. Drop the sea.
The old man, more of a desert than a sea. Yeah.
Yeah, drop
Um,
the C, keep the old man. Do you have what is your favorite moment in the old man?
my favorite moment. I don't know. I mean, I really did enjoy doing that plane scene, and I really liked the way it came out with John. I also love seeing all the action sequences that I had nothing to do with. That Jeff was in. He did an amazing job, and that was those were some of my favorite things to watch as an audience member.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today. Best of luck for the Emmy Awards with the old man. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to watch our awards coverage and content there. And yeah, just thank you so much for the time. It's been so great to chat.
Thank you, Matt. Take care.
Yeah, you too.